All right, good morning. We are in Hebrews chapter 11. We'll be looking at 5 and 6, verses 5 and 6 today. By faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death and was not found, because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So I entitled today's lesson, How to Please God. We learned in our last lesson that the elders obtained a good testimony because they endured by living by faith. Abel also obtained a good testimony because he offered his sacrifices by faith. We too will obtain a good testimony if we endure by living by faith, if we obey him because we trust him, if we trust that God knows what he is doing, if we trust that God is doing what is best, if we trust that God will get us through it and bring us home afterwards because he said he will do so. We also know that all things, both visible and invisible, were created by God through his spoken word, because God said he did, and by faith we believe him. As we shall see, believing God is in fact how we please him. Enoch is the next member of the Hall of Faith. His story is in Genesis 5, verses 21 to 25. So let's turn there and read those verses. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So verse 24. Most of Genesis 5 is a genealogy which lists the first 10 generations from Adam. For each man in this genealogy in Genesis 5, the text says that he lived for so many years, begot his firstborn son, lived for so many years, then died. Enoch is the exception. Enoch is the exception. Instead of saying that Enoch died, the text says, and he was not, for God took him. The writer of the epistle makes it clear that Enoch did not die, for he says, by faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death. God took Enoch away to spend time with him in heaven. Since Hebrews 9:27 says it is appointed for men to die once, and since Enoch has not yet died, and neither has Elijah, according to 2 Kings 2, verses 11 and 12, it has been suggested that those two men are the two witnesses who will be killed in Jerusalem and then resurrected, according to Revelation 11, verses 3 to 14. So let's go to the other end of the Bible, and let's go to Revelation 11. Starting at verse 3. And I will give power to my two witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands standing before the God of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. These have power to shut heaven, so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to strike the earth with all plagues, as often as they desire. When they finish their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see their dead bodies 3.5 days and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth. Now after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." And they ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. In the same hour there was a great earthquake, and 1/10 of the city fell. In the earthquake 7,000 people were killed, and the rest were afraid, and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past. Behold, the third woe is coming quickly. So, it's been suggested these two witnesses are actually Enoch and Elijah. Back to the notes. However, this is speculation. This is speculation. The scriptures do not plainly state that these two men are the witnesses. What Genesis does say twice is that Enoch walked with God. It does not say whether God physically appeared on the earth to walk with him. The phrase walked with God normally means that Enoch had an intimate relationship with God. He had an intimate relationship with God. The writer of the epistle does not note that Enoch walked with God. Rather, he says, before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. Testimony is again our Greek word martyreo. The testimony given to Enoch was that he pleased God. The writer found this information in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Where the Hebrew text says Enoch walked with God, the Septuagint says Enoch was well-pleasing to God. It is not certain why the Septuagint changed the Hebrew text, but the Septuagint has a tendency to change the Hebrew text where the Hebrew pictures God in anthropomorphic terms. That is, where the Hebrew describes God as if he had human qualities. It is thought that the Septuagint changed the text in Enoch's story because picturing God as walking with a man made him appear too human. The writer of the epistle, inspired by the Holy Spirit, viewed the Septuagint text as being correct. Enoch was indeed well-pleasing to God. This leads the writer to telling us how to be well-pleasing to God. Hebrews 11:6 says, "But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him." This verse tells us that to please God, we must believe 3 things. We must believe 3 things. The first is that we must believe that he is, that God exists. We must believe that God exists. The second thing is that we must believe that he is, that this God exists. Atheism was not prevalent at the time the epistle to the Hebrews was written. Virtually everybody believed in some sort of God. To please God, we must believe that he exists, that the real God exists. To believe in God, we must know who he is. We must know his character. We must know his character. How do we get to know his character? Jesus said that he came to show us who the Father really is. In his prayer to his Father, Jesus said, "I have manifested your name to the men whom you have given me out of the world." John 17:6. Name, as we learned some time ago, means character. Jesus manifested, revealed the character of God. He was able to do so because he has the same character. The epistle to the Hebrews tells us that the express image of the Father has been stamped onto Jesus, Hebrews 1:3. So that, as Jesus says to Philip, to see Jesus is to see the Father, John 14:9. The character which Jesus has revealed to us is that God the Father is always good, and he always tells the truth, and he always does what is best for everybody. That is why we can always trust the character of God. And that is exactly what faith means. To believe in God is to trust in the character of God, to trust that He is always good, to trust that He always tells the truth, and to entrust Him with our lives because we trust that He will do what is best for us. The third thing that Hebrews 11:6 tells us is that to please God, we must believe that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. The Scriptures constantly remind us that we should diligently seek God. Moses told the Israelites that when they disobey God, He will scatter them throughout the nations. Then He says, "But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find Him if you seek Him with all your heart and with all your soul." Deuteronomy 4:29. God told the Israelites the same thing through the prophet Jeremiah. "And you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29:13. Diligently seeking God means seeking Him with all your heart and all your soul. That is, with everything that you have. Through the prophet Isaiah, God said to the Israelites, "Seek the Lord while He may be found. Call upon Him while He is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, and He will have mercy on him, and to our God, for He will abundantly pardon." That's Isaiah 55, verses 6 and 7. Diligently seeking God includes forsaking our wicked ways. But we should do this soon, because a time is coming when God will not allow Himself to be found. If we diligently seek Him, what is our reward? Our reward is Him. Our reward is Him. If we are truly seeking Him, then He rewards us by giving Himself to us. He enters into a relationship with us. Seeking Him then means that we are searching for Him so that we can have a relationship with Him. We seek Him so that we can become one with Him. This is precisely what faith does for us. Faith makes us one with God. Faith makes us one with God and Jesus Christ. The phrases faith in Christ and believe in Jesus and similar phrases appear many times throughout the New Testament. The Greek uses 4 prepositions in these phrases. We will discuss 3 of them today. The first preposition is used in Hebrews 6:1, which says that one of the elementary principles of the Christian life is faith toward God. The Greek preposition in this phrase is epi, and it does mean toward. It means toward. It denotes direction. It is used to mean that an object is moving toward something else. I would use this preposition if I were to say, for example, "I am walking toward my home." We also find this preposition in Romans 4:5. "But to him who does not work, but believes on Him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is accounted for righteousness." The English preposition on in this verse translates epi, but the English could also use the word toward. The most commonly used preposition is eis. This preposition has many different meanings depending on context, but its primary meaning is into. Its primary meaning is into. It also denotes direction. It is used to mean that an object is entering into something else. I would use this preposition if I were to say, "I am entering into my home." We find this preposition in, for example, John 14:1, in which Jesus says to the disciples, "You believe in God, believe also in me." More literally, Jesus says, "You believe into God, believe also into me." The third preposition is en, and it means in. It means in. It denotes position. It is used to mean that an object is in something else. I would use this preposition if I were to say, "I am in my home." We find this preposition in, for example, Galatians 3:26, "For you are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus." Putting these 3 prepositions together, we see that faith causes us to move toward God and Jesus Christ. That faith then causes us to enter into God and Jesus Christ. And that faith then causes us to remain in God and Jesus Christ. This is how faith in God and Jesus Christ makes us one with them. This is why coming to God by faith pleases Him. By faith, we are saying that His character is always good. By faith, we are saying that He is not a liar. By faith, we are saying that what He says is always true. By faith, we are saying that we can entrust Him with our lives. And by faith, we are saying that we are coming to Him because we want to become one with Him. This is how the just live by faith. And this is how we endure by living by faith. When we become one with God by faith, we obtain His righteousness. We obtain His righteousness. And we obtain His ability to endure. We obtain His ability to endure. So, go to God in faith. Trust that He is always good. Trust that He always speaks the truth. And trust Him with your life. Seek Him with all your heart and all your soul. Forsake your wicked ways. Become one with God. That is how you endure by living by faith, and that is how you please God. Excuse me. Any questions, comments, Eli?
That's some big meat. That's some big steak.
He said,
Sorry.
that's some big steak.
Yep. Comments, questions?
I thought it was interesting how the message to those in Deuteronomy and the message to those in Jeremiah is the same message to us today in Hebrews. That he was telling them then, a long, long time ago, before the new covenant, and he's telling them now, a long time after the new covenant, you're supposed to seek me with everything, and the message hasn't changed. Like, throughout all of humanity,
Yeah.
it has been that message.
Yeah. Sue and I were talking yesterday about some of the things that are going on in the church as a whole, not this fellowship, but the church as a whole. And I made the comment that it seems to me that a lot of Christians, people who claim to be Christian, that they they come to believe that Christ Christ was raised from the dead, that He died for their sins. So they become Christians, and then they act like, okay, I got it from here. So, I didn't say this yesterday, but basically what they do is they put God on a shelf, and then they go off living the life that they think they're supposed to live. Well, now that I'm a Christian, I'm supposed to live a righteous life, so I'm going to do what I think is right. Instead of asking God what is right, instead of this partnership with God where He's with you all the time, it's like, I'm going to put God up there, and then I'm going to go off and live my life, and hopefully it's pleasing to Him. Hopefully I get it right. Well, why don't you take the time to seek Him and ask Him if it's right, and have this relationship with Him?
I think we get complacent and lazy.
I'm sorry.
We get complacent and lazy.
Yes.
And you're right, we go through the motions of religion. And that's what it becomes, a religion, not a relationship.
Right.
Because we feel safe that we know who He is, or that He called us, but we answer part of the call, we don't completely make that commitment. And I think that's when some people ride the fence, so to speak, like, okay, I'm getting out of sync, oh, I'm back over here, oh, and they play with that fence line, and we know who is the one that put the fence up, who owns the fence.
Right.
So I can say, in all honesty, I was probably like that for a long time, but because you don't get the message from the pulpit, the urgency, you just get it's not just the pastor's job, it's our job to do, but I think he needs to set the example there and, stress the importance of not living on that fence.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people get lost and church becomes a social club.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the problem. You have so many programs that you forget the real program.
Right.
So, that's my take.
Yeah. Well, like Sue's comment was, especially in the church we were at in Trona, it was like, we got to do this and we got to do that and we got to do this and we got to do this and we got to do this. And we end up getting so busy doing all these things that we think God wants us to do or we think is the right thing to do that we actually don't have time for God and go to him and say, is this what you really want? Well, if we had started there, then maybe we wouldn't be so busy, with all this stuff. But that's, like she said, it's a ploy that Satan does to get us so busy that we don't have time for God, really, to develop a relationship with him.
That word busy, somebody said, stop saying you're so busy, because I always said, oh, I'm just busy. And she said, the letters are being under Satan's yoke. When you're busy,
Yeah.
he's really preparing you for failure, because when we're so busy and then something happens, we're like pulling straws, like where do I go? I'm kind of lost here, and that's, instead of being prepared for that thing that, comes, you've already been on your knees, you've already been in prayer, and I'll tell you, that's the hardest thing for me is to get into some prayer. And like I said before, what a privilege it is to talk to God. And we just, if Trump called us on the phone, we'd want to stay on the phone and just keep talking, right?
Yeah.
Because
We drop
it's
everything to,
important,
yeah.
But we
Yep.
don't realize the importance of Christ.
Right.
To be able to have that one-on-one,
Yeah.
to be able to talk to him. But it's not a matter of me not wanting to talk to him. My thing is, my mind goes into so many different directions. I'll be praying over here, all of a sudden I'm doing this over here.
Yeah.
And then I'm praying again,
Yeah.
and then, I forgot to do
Yeah.
this, and I have to get up and do that. And it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm trying to pray, Lord, I'm sorry, I did it again,
Yeah. The hardest thing to do is, I think, for most people, is to corral the thoughts and stuff. Because I go through the same thing. I'll be praying about something which will remind me of something else,
Right.
which will remind me of something else. Next thing I know, I'm sitting here thinking about this thing. And, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be talking to you.
Right.
But yeah, it's like,
I don't know if this works with you, but when I pray out loud, I seem to stay on focus than when I pray quietly. Because when I pray quietly, my mind gets to wandering, but when I verbally, out loud, not out loud, but, when I can pray where I can hear myself, it seems I can stay focused a little bit more.
yeah, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, but then you hear people that say, when you pray out loud, the enemy hears what you're praying and knows what your worries are. And it's like, you hear that and it's like,
The enemy knows what you're thinking, and knows, and even if you're praying silently, the enemy knows what you're praying. That to me is just, yeah.
So
I mean, praying out loud is what they normally did in the Bible. They used to read out loud too. So, yeah, so for example, Hannah in the Old Testament, she wants to have a son, and she's just upset about it, so she goes to the tabernacle and she's praying, but she's praying silently, and the priest is sitting there going, Your lips are moving, but you're not saying anything. Is something wrong with you? You know, it's like if your lips are moving, then you should be saying something out loud, was the norm. You know, but she was so upset, it was just like, I can't even say it out loud. But, but that was the norm. You go pray out loud. So everybody can hear you. But it's just, yeah. I think it's funny how people come up with different things like that. Well, if you pray out loud, Satan can hear you. Well, he knows anyway. He already knows. So, yeah. But for me, what I have to do is, a lot of times if I sit down to pray, I'll fall asleep. I have to get up and move, and stuff. And so, yeah. Which is also why, you know, like JP used to say, you know, the first thing you got to do is have your quiet time. Not for me, because if I have it the first time, I'm going back to sleep. So I have it somewhere later in the day, you know, when I'm more awake. So,
Some people do it at night because there's too much going on during the day.
and that's exactly. I wait till everybody's in bed and everything's quiet, and I got the time to myself. But so then I can walk around the house and pray and stuff.
I think a good point is that Jesus prayed morning, night, day.
Yeah.
So kind of set the example for us.
Well, I think too.
Not kind of, but did.
We think that we have to do it all at once.
Yeah.
When instead of saying, okay, Lord, I need you, at this time, with this, and this, and then down the road, oh, thank you, Lord, you know, and then over here, you know what I mean? If
Right.
we just pray without ceasing, sort of thing, where you just pray throughout the day,
Right.
not just feel like you have to pray an hour and a half to 2 hours in one shot.
Or
Some
15
people it
minutes.
works. For some people it works. That's what they do.
Well, yeah.
They dedicate that
Yeah.
time, but that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. For me, what I see happens though with some people, again, sometimes this works. If they want to do their prayer time first thing in the morning for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, that's fine, great, if it works for you. But what happens is, a lot of times, especially men think this way is, okay, I got that done, put that aside. Now the next thing, put that aside. Now the next thing. And so what happens is, okay, I had my time with God. There goes God, because now I got to do my work, and I got to do the house, and I got to do, instead of come with me, God, to do my work and do my house and stuff. And that's what the relationship is. The relationship is not, okay, I spent 15 minutes with God, so I've done my duty for today. Now I can go on and do the other things. Well, that's not a relationship. Can you imagine your husband coming home and saying, okay, Marge, you got 15 minutes, talk to me. What's going on? Okay, I'm done with that. See you tomorrow. Can you imagine what kind of marriage that would be? It was like, that doesn't work. So you're right, the prayer without ceasing, it doesn't mean that you pray 24 hours. It means that you still got other things you have to do. So it means as you do those things, you're talking to God. And so you have that relationship. So.
Another thing I think is interesting as you're talking about, the Bible doesn't specifically say who the two witnesses are, but other people have also speculated that because Moses was there with Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration, people say, oh, well, Moses might be one of the two witnesses. He wanted the bones of Moses, they're fighting over the bones of Moses, so why would he want those bones? Like, what is he trying to do with Moses later on? Mm-hmm. Some people have speculated that it was, it's possibly Moses too. But again, it doesn't actually say.
Right.
But
Yeah.
when they say that Moses died and God's the one that buried him, right?
Right.
Does that mean he died at some point?
Yes, he died and God buried him.
Okay.
Yeah. And so he went up to the top of Mount Nebo, got to see the whole land. Then he died and God buried him, but he didn't tell anybody where he buried him. So.
Why did Satan want his bones?
Don't know that. I don't know. But that's something that came out of the book of Enoch, which was written, like 200 years before Christ came around, or 100 years before. But it wasn't written by Enoch. But obviously, because Enoch was thousands of years ago. But so I'm not familiar with that as to why there was a dispute over his body. I know Jude references it, but yeah, it's just, I don't know what Satan's plan was if he could get the body. But since Satan is going to inhabit the Antichrist who takes over, maybe that was his plan, raise up Moses and inhabit Moses and lead the Jews astray because, oh, Moses is back. Yeah. But Jesus said the same thing's going to happen about him. People are going to rise up and say, I'm the Christ, I've come back. It's just no.
Worshippers, I just studied that, why he wanted the body.
Can't hear you.
3 reasons why he wanted the body.
There were 3 reasons.
No, I just, I don't think it was,
That's all right.
but it was one that the people was idolatry. They worship. You know, the golden calf. They worship the golden calf. So they were idolatrous people. And so he figured if he can get the body of Moses, he can stop them from crossing the Jordan River. They would never go into the promised land. If he can get them to worship Moses, dead body, a resurrected body. Because that's what they were. They would have worshipped anything, these people. So
Did you hear what he said?
he didn't want them crossing the Jordan with Joshua. He
Yeah.
tried to do anything to keep them in an idolatrous state. The golden calf,
Yeah.
the serpent on the pole. And so they worship anything to idolaters. So if he can get that body,
So he wanted to resurrect Moses so that he can keep them from going into the promised land. I hadn't heard that idea before. Maybe that's a possibility. But
if they worship idols coming out of Egypt, that's what that's all about.
yeah. Well, the prophet Amos says that they were worshiping idols the whole 40 years that they were in the wilderness. So, yeah. So they still practice idolatry. Even while they're going through the wilderness and seeing all that God did, they're still worshiping other gods. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, we humans, we're so weak. We give in to sin so easily. Yeah. Some people read Genesis where Adam and Eve were told not to eat the fruit from the tree. And then Eve does, of course. And everyone has to turn it into, it's something symbolic. It can't be that simple. It can't be that all she did was eat a piece of fruit. No, it's not. It's got to be something more dramatic and worse than that, you know. No, that was the point. You guys can't even you guys can't even avoid the tree. All I said was you can eat anywhere else, just not that one. And that's how easily we fall into sin. Well, I got to have that one. You know?
It's the same today. We want what we can't have.
Yeah. So one of my teachers at college, he made this point, is at the college, it was up in the hills. And so behind one of the parking lots, there was a hill that went literally like this, but almost straight up. Had grass and trees on it, but it literally almost went straight up. And because it was so steep, nobody climbed it. It wasn't worth the time. He said, but what if the school put up a fence at the bottom of that hill, at the end of the parking lot, and said, do not climb this hill? Guess what? Everybody in the school would be climbing that hill. Why? Why can't we climb it? Let's go find out. You know, it's like, yeah. It's the way we are. The way we are. Bill?
I thought it was a good point that in Genesis 5, you point out that it follows a pattern throughout the genealogy, and then Enoch is a break in the pattern. It is like an isolated thing. because there are reasons that the authors do these certain things where they have a pattern, but then they break the pattern, and then they go back to the pattern, and it's like, well, why did they break the pattern? What are they trying to emphasize? What point are they trying to make? And that was a good point, that was a break in the pattern.
Makes it stand out.
Makes it stand out,
Yeah. Yep.
That's all I got, though.
Okay, well, last week, or 2 weeks ago actually, last time we met, we were talking about Abel, and because of our discussion that we don't know why Abel actually made the sacrifices, we don't know what God actually commanded them to do, and we don't know why Abel's sacrifice was considered better than Cain's. It just says that it was. The writer of Hebrews says that Abel's sacrifice was more excellent than Cain's, but he doesn't say why. So a couple weeks ago, when I was talking about Abel through the teaching, I went over, I assumed too much. So based on our discussion, I did correct what I said, and so I've changed the notes, and I'm going to give you the new notes for that part. So you can just throw out the pages, and I'll give you the new ones. This one is Olivia. This is for Grandma. That's for Grandma. And
I got mom.
all right. Okay. Okay, that's for Mom. That's for you. And then and this is for you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess that's it.
And that one just kind of removes a little bit of the assumptions, or?
Yeah. So what I did is I brought it all down to one paragraph.
Okay.
It says, after I said that, Abel's in the hall of faith, and we read the story of Abel and Cain in Genesis 4, 1 through 9, I then say Genesis does not tell us what made Abel and Cain think that they should offer sacrifices, nor does it tell us why the Lord respected Abel's sacrifice and not Cain's. But the writer of the epistle to the Hebrews says, by faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice. This means that in some way Cain's sacrifice was inferior to Abel's, in which way is not specified. The writer also implies that Cain did not offer his sacrifice by faith, otherwise he too would be in the hall of faith. Paul tells us whatever is not from faith is sin, Romans 14:23. So Cain offered his sacrifice for the wrong reason. What that reason was is again not specified, but it was based on unbelief. And that unbelief ultimately drove him to murder his brother. And then I pick up where I was at that point. So,
Just more keeping it in alignment with the text.
yeah,
Yeah.
instead of trying to read too much into it.